Hello, honey. I just got a call from Booktown Search and Rescue, and I found a flotation device that I threw to mom when she fell overboard, and so they haven't found her yet, but they can now focus all of their efforts in a smaller area, and they're still out there searching today. So I just wanted to update you and let you know. I love you. I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.
There are some cases that feel wrong from the very beginning. This is one of them. A woman disappears into the dark waters of the Bahamas. Her husband says she fell overboard. He says the current took her. He says he could not save her. But only a few days later, police arrested him. So now the question is no longer just what happened to Lynette Hooker. The question is this: what happened out there on that dinghy between Hopetown and Elbow Cay? Lynette Hooker was a 55-year-old American woman from Michigan. She and her husband, Brian Hooker, had been living a sailing lifestyle in the Bahamas and sharing parts of that life online. According to police reporting, the two were traveling in a small dinghy on the night of April 4th, 2026, heading from Hopetown toward Elbow Cay in the Abacos. Then everything changed. According to Brian Hooker's account to authorities, Lynette fell overboard while holding the key to the dinghy. He said the engine stopped. Strong currents pulled her away, and he lost sight of her. He then paddled to shore and alerted someone who contacted police. Search teams from the Bahamas, along with aerial support from the United States Coast Guard, began looking for Lynette. Reports say they found a floating device, but Lynette herself was not found. At first, this sounded like a tragic boating accident, but then the story shifted. On April 8, Bahamian authorities arrested Brian Hooker in Abaco as a suspect based on probable cause. At the same time, the US Coast Guard confirmed that a criminal investigation had been opened. Public reporting also said that no formal charges had yet been announced at that stage. And that is the moment this story becomes something else. Because when a case begins as a missing person search and then suddenly moves into criminal investigation territory, people start asking whether the original story ever made sense at all. So let's break this down carefully. Let's go step by step, because right now this case is built around one short timeline, one surviving witness, and a lot of missing answers. The confirmed starting point is simple. Lynette and Brian were on a small boat trip at that night. That part is not a dispute. Multiple reports say they were traveling by dinghy between Hopetown and Elbow Cay when Lynette disappeared. The second step is where the mystery begins. Brian told authorities that Lynette fell overboard with the boat's keys. That detail mattered because the report's explanation for why the engine stopped depends on it. If she had the keys and went into the water, then the engine stopping fit his version of events. But public reporting does not explain why Lynette was holding the keys at that exact moment. It also does not explain exactly how she went overboard. And that is important because in a case like this, the smallest detail can become the center of everything. Why was Lynette the one holding the key? Was she driving? Was she helping with something? Was there a sudden movement on the boat? Or is this one of those details that sounds very specific because it has to explain something else? Right now, according to public reporting, we don't know. Then comes the next part of the story. Brian said strong currents carried Lynette away and that he could not reach her. Reports say he later paddled ashore and alerted someone early the next morning. That is the account that triggered the search, but public reporting still leaves major gaps here too. There is no publicly released reconstruction of the boat's exact position, no detailed public breakdown of visibility at that moment she disappeared, and no public forensic description of what investigators may have found on the dinghy itself. And that missing information matter because when a story depends on a simple person's version of what happened, every missing piece becomes bigger. There was no publicly identified witness who saw Lynette go into water. There was no public video. There was no public body camera release. There was no affidavit explaining probable cause, at least not in the reporting available right now. Then there is the family reaction. And this is where the emotional pressure on the case gets even heavier. Lynette's daughter, Carrie, publicly challenged the accident narrative and called for a deeper investigation. According to AP and People, she raised concerns about the relationship and questioned whether what happened was truly accidental. That does not prove a crime. Family suspicion is not evidence by itself, but it does tell us something very important. The people closest to Lynette were not comfortable simply accepting the first explanation they heard. That alone changed how viewers hear this story, because now the audience is not just hearing about an overboard accident, they are hearing about an overboard accident that even the family does not fully believe. And then police arrest the husband. That is the part no one can ignore. Now, to be fair, an arrest does not automatically mean guilt. That is important. Public reporting said Brian Hooker was arrested as a suspect based on a probable cause, and at that point, no formal charges had yet been announced in the coverage I reviewed. That means we have to stay careful. We cannot jump ahead of the evidence. We cannot turn suspicion into fact. But we also cannot ignore what that arrest means. It meant investigators saw something serious enough to move beyond a routine missing at sea case, and right now the public still does not know exactly what that was. That missing piece is the engine of this entire case, because the public version and the investigators' action no longer match. The public version said this was a woman swept away by currents after falling from a dinghy. The investigators' actions say there is a reason to suspect more. And that is where true mystery lives. Not in what is loud, in what does not line up. So, let's look at the main theory. Theory number 1 is the official account under investigation. In this version, Lynette's disappearance was a tragic accident at sea. She fell overboard, the key went with her, the engine stopped, and the current separated her from the boat before Brian could save her. This theory is supported by the husband's report's account to police and by fact that open water accidents can happen very fast, especially at night. The weakness in that theory is obvious. If this was just a clear accident, why did authorities arrest Brian and open a criminal investigation? That does not disprove the accident theory, but it does damage the idea that the story is simple. Theory number 2 is full play on the dinghy. This is not a confirmed fact. This is an inference people will naturally make because police moved so quickly from search mode to criminal investigation mode. It also fits with the family public doubts, but there is still no public charge sheet, no public forensic explanation, no publicly released witness statements, and no public confession in the reporting are reviewed. So, this theory cannot be presented as fact. Theory number 3 is something in the middle. Not necessarily a full planned crime, not necessarily a pure accident, but some kind of argument, confrontation, or incident that happened first and then was later described in a simpler way. Again, this is not confirmed in reporting. It is only a logical possibility that exists because the story we have feels incomplete, and when a story feels incomplete, audiences begin to ask whether they are hearing the full truth or only the part that survived. Now let's talk about the online reaction. Public discussion and speculation online, not confirmed fact. Online discussion has split into two broad camps. One side says the story sounds suspicious because only one person came back, because she had the key, detail sounds unusually specific, and because police escalated the case fast. The other side says people should be careful because accidents on the water can sound strange, and arrest alone is not proof of murder. That divide is exactly why this case is pulling attention so quickly. People are not just reacting emotionally, they are trying to solve the logic of it. And honestly, that is what makes this such a strong case for a video. It is not just sad, it is insatiable. Every part of it feels like it could mean two different things. A key in her hands could be normal, or it could be important. No witness could be understandable or deeply suspicious. A criminal investigation could mean investigators found something major, or that they are still trying to rule things out. That uncertainty is exactly what keeps people. So, where does that leave us right now? Here is the clearest reading of the case based on verified reporting. Lynette Hooker disappeared in the Bahamas during a nighttime dinghy trip with her husband on April 4th, 2026. Her husband said she fell overboard and was swept away. Search crews from Bahamas authorities and the US Coast Guard responded. She had not been found. Her daughter publicly questioned the accident story. Within days, Bahamian police arrested Brian Hooker as a suspect based on a probable cause, and the US Coast Guard opened a criminal investigation. Public reporting at that stage said no formal charges had yet been announced. Those are the facts. Now here is the analysis. The most credible current conclusion is not that the public already know what happened. It is that investigators know more than they are saying. That is the strongest conclusion supported by the arrest and by the criminal investigation shift. Not because it proves guilt, it does not, but because it proves the original story is no longer being treated as enough. And that brings us to the real heart of this case. Maybe Lynette Hooker was lost in a terrible accident. Maybe something happened on that dinghy that has not been made public. Maybe the truth is sitting inside one missing detail that investigators already have, but the public has not seen yet. Until more evidence come out, this case remains stuck between two words: the story the public was told and the story police seems to believe they are actually investigating. So now, I want to ask you the same question that everyone following this case is asking. What do you think happened out there? Did investigators catch a lie in the timeline? Did something happen before Lynette went into the water? Or is this one of those rare cases where a true accident sounds so strange that it becomes almost impossible to believe? Let me know what you think, because in cases like this, sometimes the truth is not hidden but by silence. Sometimes it is hidden inside the first version of the story. Thank you.